It sounds good.
Yeah, and then the master volume's turned down to like 4.
Yeah, well, you dime it when you play live.
I haven't. I take the master volume does not even function when I play it.
Yeah,
so
well, that's fine.
But that is a. I mean, you can take the master down pretty far on this amp, and it still sounds musical.
So this is a DG Custom 30.
Right.
And of all the ones you did a 50 and a 30, the 30 is the one people seem to gravitate to and love.
This is the one that I play all the time.
That's cool. So what's not known about this amp is there's a little knob in the back that you can control the treble on the output, right?
There's 2 knobs.
2 knobs.
There's a presence and a top cut. So the presence is the overall
high end
shimmer,
in the power amp.
Kind of, I think maybe a negative feedback circuit. And the top cut sort of, you can take it from like more of a blackface EQ to getting into, you can brown it down into plexi world. And I kind of live more in the brown area of the dial.
So look, when you and Doug did this, how long did you spend designing this amp?
I don't know, it was about 2 years, I think, over 2 years, because it really involved him coming down to Texas a lot, and we would just discuss the philosophy about it. I would show him what I liked in my Tweed Deluxe, I would show him what I liked in my AC30, and what I liked in my Plexi 50, what I liked in my high watt, the way the mid-range control worked in the high watt, all those things, and it just... he built something, and he came down, and I would listen to it, and I'd say, well, initially I think it's got too much top, not enough bottom, or this, whatever I said.
Right.
And then we would again listen to those amps, and this went on, and then finally got to the point where we got so close that we would sit there with the amps open on top of the speaker cabinet, like not UL approved.
Prototype approved. Go on.
Yeah. So literally changing, different value caps in, and we'd spend several hours doing that. At which point your ears get a little fatigued, and we would come back in the next day to see where we were. And every single time we found that we had gone one step too far.
Right.
And so with fresh ears, we were able to kind of back up, and then so it took about 2 years to get everything happening the way I like it.
Well, look, if you're going to play straight in, the thing works. If you're going to play with a pedal board, it works.
It works either way. I'm just sitting here with an exotic EP booster, which is a clean boost. The master's on Ford, so it's not. I'm not getting all the outputs. So I'm just hitting the front end a little harder. Without it, it still sounds fantastic. It's barely doing anything at all. But it takes pedals really well, and I've never used an effects loop. Everything comes in front of the amp. There's a switch on the back that there's a boost and normal, and I always use the boost unless I'm in the studio and want a blackface-ish thing. I put it on the normal and then turn the bright switch on, and voila, there it is. But the goal, it was really, to me, amplifiers have been we're talking about balance of in this amp is the right amount of gain and the right amount of compression. Because I've had amps before in the studio that sounded great, and you take them out live and they disappear. Too much compression. Too much gain, and you don't have the touch sensitivity. And the gain needs to come from a certain part of the amplifier to get those upper harmonics to shine through. That was the thing, is to find the right balance of gain and compression, and then also get the top end right and have a tight, fat bottom end. I mean, there's so many different benchmark tones for me over the years, whether it's Wes Montgomery's L5 or Albert Lee's Telly or Hendrix, Jeff Beck, which is like 10 different benchmark tones right there. But it kind of came. I mean, I think I would have to go to the Allman Brothers at Fillmore East, and the first 3 ZZ Top records. And the common denominator for me there was when you hear Duane, especially in that breakdown on "You Don't Love Me," it's just overdriven enough. But he's getting it to feedback. So it's sort of that clean feedback thing where the overtones come out. It doesn't sound like there's a bunch of pedals on. It's not garbled. And the same thing with Billy Gibbons at that time. It's a purity. We get nerdy and they're intangibles when we talk about tone, but to me it's a real purity, an unprocessed organic tone that has just enough gain to start when the ions in the air start to, your hair starts to stand up, just enough gain to but the notes retain all the articulation.
I'll tell you a story. I went overseas, and all these bands were playing around our band. We went and played China and Japan and a bunch of other places. And all the other bands were plugged into digital boxes. And it just doesn't, not that they're bad products, but it doesn't give me the heart hit that I hear when I go and see you at the Saxon House or something. There's something extraordinary about this rig that it just works and it sounds like music. Also, you put some big holes in the back of the cabinet, so it's got ports in it.
It just seemed like something we ought to try, and it worked. It worked. Yeah, it works. I mean, it lets the sound kind of come out from around the amplifier, but there's basket weave grill cloth over those holes, so it's not ricocheting against the wall behind you. It's it's dampened by the grill cloth. The same stuff that's on the front, which is like when an old basket weave cabinet, that the damping from this thicker grill cloth smooths the top end and gives it a kind of a nice pillowy compression in a very slight way. So it's the same thing coming out of the back of the amp, but if I move it about this far away from the wall and I hear the sound coming around me as opposed to being a tractor beam of vintage 30s to the people in the front row. And I mean, I play loud, and the Saxon every Tuesday night, I play loud. I play this thing. It's only 30 watts. People are like, no way.
Yeah.
But I watch people in the front row. They're right there at ear level, and nobody's going like this. A few people wear earplugs, which is smart because they come every week. Yeah. It's just not killing people. Yeah. And I've taken 112 combos, 15-watt combos, and I see people going like this before. So that tells me that we're in a friendly. The good loud thing actually does apply here.
So this is another one of these pieces of gear that you've done with us that it's just a good piece of gear. Like an LA2A original one is in the studio. It just seems to work for vocals. This just seems to work for guitar. And we can talk about it, but unless they plug into one and try it, they're not really going to know.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, what I would characterize both the guitar and the amp doing is having come from having liked guitar players who used vintage gear, what I call vintage gear, old 50s Les Pauls, 335s, Strats, and Plexi Marshalls. That's my sensibility. Now I've never, when I got rid of the Strat, it became clear to me that I don't want to sound like somebody else. I've always gone for my own tone, but this guitar and this amp are sort of the PRS guitar and amp for guys that I think like the idea of playing something vintage, but have all the advantages and consistency and intonation and reliability of a modern instrument. And that's sort of the niche I think that this guitar and amp fill in the realm of your other guitars.
Jimmy Herring said something to me once. I said, "Why are you playing this PRS?" He goes, "Because it'll do things my vintage guitars won't do."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really beautiful statement. It's the same thing with this.
Yeah.
I don't hear a vintage amp that sounds like this.
Yeah, it will do a lot of things.
Yeah, do a lot of things.
And it's, I played a 50-watt Marshall, old 50-watt Marshall with Joe Ely for years, and sometimes a 100-watt one. You think I'm loud now? Those amps will literally clear. I mean, I don't know how we got away with it, but there's something that happens in those amps that's undeniably fabulous. I love it. But I always in the studio, it was we're spending 30 minutes moving microphones and everything. It doesn't translate on this amp, man. Pick a mic. Doesn't matter. Any mic. Kind of get it near the middle of the speaker.
Yeah, and shut up.
You're done.
Yeah.
My
thought was, no matter what mic you put on Paul Rogers, it sounds like Paul Rogers, and these really good amps, no matter what mic you put on, it's going to sound good.
Well, and to a certain extent, that's true with pickups and guitars. If the guitar doesn't sound that way acoustically, it's not going to. The pickup enhances. You just got to find the right pickup for the guitar and for the ears that are tuning it.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this video. I really appreciate you coming all the way from Austin to do this DG Custom 30.
Right on.
Maybe you should give me one of these.
We'll set it up. I know a cat.
You know a cat.
Yeah.
All right, guys. David, Paul, see everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.